You are listening to the Age Like a Boss podcast, episode 9. In today's episode, I'll be wrapping up my 4-part series on my 2024 Menopause Metabolic Makeover. Stick around. Hey everyone, welcome to the Age Like a Boss podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Singh. Hey there, I'm Jennifer. If it's your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And if you've not listened to parts 1, 2, and 3 of this 4-part series, don't worry. You don't need to go find it right this minute. These are not in any particular order, so feel free to just start here and start listening here. It is the holidays. It's Thanksgiving week, and my kids are filtering in from college and from being far away, and I haven't seen them in weeks and weeks. So I have a lot of junk food that I've got to go pick up and stock the house with. Don't judge, okay? I am a wellness expert, but I am still a mom of kids who I miss. And when they're home, I like to love them with food, right? We're imperfect. There you go. Okay, so for part 4 of this 4-part series, I keep calling this my 2024 Menopause Metabolic Makeover. And there are 4 parts to it right now, but I want to keep stressing that this is just what I've done so far. We're never done. We never stop evolving. I'm going to keep aging. Things about my body are going to keep changing. So this is what is working right now. This also doesn't mean that every one of these things are appropriate for you. I see so many times this level of perfectionism when clients or patients hear this kind of checklist or laundry list of things that they, air quotes, should be doing. It can be utterly overwhelming. And it's really not a thorough understanding of human nature to expect yourself or a client or a patient to just change their entire life overnight. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. And for some people, a global change, I call that the scorched pantry method, where you just go in with a blowtorch practically and just scorch the pantry and the kitchen. So there's no resemblance to what it used to look like, and everything is replaced with healthy, air quotes, items. That's one way to do it. It is certainly not the only way to do it. So in listening to all the things that I did over the year, please remember the phrase over a year. Okay, I've been working on this for a year. If you find something in here that resonates with you, and I can tell you that everything in here is evidence-based and very low likelihood to hurt you as long as you clear it with your healthcare professional. Thankfully, I've had a really problematic patient to practice all of this on, and it's the one in the mirror. She is a handful. Okay, let's hop in. I'm going to cover 3 more things today that I did for a metabolic makeover. Now, back in part 1, I defined a little bit about what I mean by focusing on my metabolic health and not just on the scale. And in episode, I can't remember if it was the 2nd or 3rd part of this, I talked a little bit about the underlying causes of metabolic disease or metabolism that doesn't work exactly like it's supposed to. And the take-home message from that is that the long-term overconsumption of calories, even a little bit, is really the root cause of metabolic disease. It is the long-term overconsumption that causes extra energy to be stored in the form of fat in areas of our body, in cells of our body, in organs of our body where it's not supposed to be. That's really the root underlying cause. Therefore, one of the solutions is to create something of a calorie deficit in our lives, meaning that we have to eat a little bit less calories than we need to live in order to help improve our metabolic health. So, some of the steps that I've shared over the past episodes have to do with that because, we know that we need to create a calorie deficit. It's, lady, how do I get myself to do it? I struggle with the same exact thing. So I've shared with you some ways that I've created a calorie deficit, and I'll kick off this episode with yet one more way that I managed to create a small calorie deficit without feeling overly deprived. Here we go. Okay, the first one I want to share with you is I blatantly swapped out my evening treats after dinner, to which I was quite emotionally attached, with low-calorie, artificially sweetened substitutes. Yes, I developed 3 or 4 little recipes for an after-dinner snack, and I made sure that these things were only made in a single batch. I struggle with a big pan of anything left in the house. No matter how healthy it is, my primitive brain just wants to overeat it. I found that by putting together a little collection of recipes that were rich in plant-based protein, high in fiber, and sugar-free, instead using stevia or monk fruit as my substitute sweetener, that I was able to have a little something practically every single night after dinner, feel incredibly satisfied, and still manage to have a gradual weight loss over the course of the year. Now, part of the reason that I felt motivated to do this was that, as I mentioned, I experimented this year with wearing a continuous glucose monitor. And as I said in a previous episode, while I do not recommend that everyone do that, there were some interesting behavior changes that I was able to make from wearing that. And eating sweets at night and then going to bed on a full stomach and watching what happened to my glucose all night long with my continuous glucose monitor was great feedback for me to see that overall this collection of behaviors was not really doing me any favors. And those behaviors were eating a big dinner, even though it was healthy food, probably eating a little too much, finishing it sometimes with a dessert that, even though it may have been based in, say, whole food plants, it was probably still too many calories more than I needed, and then sitting or going to bed relatively soon after that. And I altered that entire routine, and changing my desserts to a protein-rich, low-calorie, sugar-free version, I think was a major player in reconstructing my glucose curve from dinner to the next morning. So, to review some of the things that I did from the previous episodes, instead of big dinner, small dessert, even if it was made with whole foods, but still probably more calories than I needed, and then going straight to bed, the new pattern became same whole food plant-based dinner, probably a little more emphasis on plant protein and plant fiber, a small, low-calorie, artificially or zero-calorie sweetened dessert, then a walk, then bed. That routine totally changed my evening glucose curve. It also, coincidentally, allowed me to create a calorie deficit, which promoted weight loss. So again, whole series on CGM is coming up soon. The good, the bad, the ugly, should you wear one, even if you're not diabetic. So please keep an eye out for that. Okay, next thing I did. I mentioned in episode 1 that one of the first things I did at the beginning of the year was get serious about building muscle, was stop obsessing about the scale and get very serious about the health of my insulin receptors and the amount of muscle on my body. While that's critically important, I have seen a lot of social media over the past few years educating perimenopausal and postmenopausal women that possibly cardio exercise or high-intensity cardio exercise after age 40 may not be beneficial due to hormone dysregulation. And I'm not sure that paying a lot of attention to that is doing us any favors. While it's an interesting theory to play around with that exercising intensely does boost our cortisol or our sort of onboard adrenaline, and that it might possibly cause problems because of that, the truth is that there are no good outcome studies where groups of women who do cardio have actually been studied to see, was it a harm for them? We don't really have ample evidence at all that cardio is in any way detrimental to women, no matter their age. We do have mountains of evidence that sitting still, being sedentary, and having poor cardiovascular health is a terrible risk for humans of all shapes and sizes, but especially women in perimenopause. So one of the things that I did was, having spent a couple of years being very focused on resistance training, and also I have always enjoyed cardio. I've never completely stopped doing cardio. I did this year decrease my resistance training to 3 very heavy lifting days per week and increase the intensity of my cardio a little bit. Now, I did this based on evidence that for perimenopausal and menopausal women, cardiovascular health is pivotal to reducing disease risk. And the fact is, we need them both. We need resistance and we need cardio. Now, what kind of cardio is best? Truthfully, any kind where you're not doing nothing is really the best cardio, whatever you think is fun. So brisk walking is a form of cardio, but I do find that I can't really get to the intensity that I want when I'm just walking, and I don't run anymore. If you see me running, please pick me up because something is chasing me. I used to run, but I don't know. I lost the love. Guess what? It doesn't matter there is no perfect cardio. The perfect one is what you will do. And I love riding my spin bike here in my house. It's convenient. It's fun. It makes me laugh. So that is currently my cardio of choice. Okay, the final step of the whole menopausal makeover this year, and although it didn't happen last, it just ended up last in the series. It's definitely not the least important, but what I finally did was do something that so many doctors are not good at. I got a doctor, like a real doctor, to manage my care instead of just me. Of course, I realize that every listener can't manage their own primary care, but in the doctor world, this is pretty common, unfortunately. And I finally got myself my own primary care doctor, and she's wonderful. Every listener, every woman over age 40 deserves at least one incredibly thorough, scientifically based conversation about hormone replacement therapy and whether or not it's appropriate for you. Now, the truth is, many primary care physicians, and I utterly and completely confess, this was me years ago, don't know enough about hormone replacement therapy, about the true evidence for or against it, to even have an appropriate conversation like that. Thankfully, times are changing. Primary care doctors are much more aware now of the basic evidence and the true research behind the risks and benefits of hormone replacement therapy. And everyone deserves one good conversation about that in their life. So if you happen to have an incredibly well-intended primary care doctor, but who maybe has not been able to have a conversation with you to the depth that you wanted about the risks and benefits of hormone replacement therapy, I urge you to find a practitioner and at least once in your life, make an appointment and have that conversation. You don't need to make that decision completely on your own. That is what the concept of informed consent is between a healthcare provider and a patient. The healthcare provider helps the patient understand the pros and the cons, the benefits and the risks, and those exist for everything we do in medicine, and helps make a decision. So if you have not had that conversation in your life, I urge you to do it. Ask around, ask your friends, get online, find a practitioner if your primary care physician is not able to answer your questions or explain the pros and cons to you. So I did make the decision to get on hormone replacement therapy, feeling that for now, it was the best decision for me when I weighed the risks and the benefits. Now, I've definitely had improvement in several of my postmenopausal symptoms. But one thing I do like to point out is that you can't discount the other 11 things that I did, right? When I'm going to fix something in my life, like I need to do a metabolic makeover, I throw every scientifically based lifestyle and therapeutic thing that I have at it. So this is what's called an incredibly uncontrolled experiment. I did everything. I exercised more. I slept more. I ate better. I lost some weight. It is quite possible that I would have had a reduction in a lot of symptoms anyway because of my dramatic lifestyle changes that I did. For me, I still definitely felt that the risks and benefits were weighed in a way that I decided to take hormone replacement therapy for now. I can't thank you enough for listening to this 4-part series. I hope you got something out of it and that you were able to pick out any small collection of habits or even just one thing that you could talk to your healthcare professional about, make sure that it's appropriate for you, and start implementing in your own life for your own metabolic makeover. That's all we've got for you today. See you soon.